Okay, this is Unit 7, Day 3. And we're specifically going to talk about these other two kinds. And I want you to think through the rules we've already had this week on this unit. Because we've already talked about these four, and we're going to be using all four of these kinds today. And we're going to go back and we're going to use the interior angle, sum of the interior angles, where these three add up to 180. We're going to use our exterior angle theorem, and we're going to use our isosceles base angle theorem. So we're going to be using all that together and putting it all together. So we're going to start off with an angle bisector, and I'm going to look at my notes from last time to help us figure this out. Well, an angle bisector here is a segment from a vertex, because it goes through a vertex, that bisects an angle. Now, as you draw these three in, I want you to think about bisecting the angle here, cutting this angle in half. Don't try to draw it all the way, just try to cut this angle into 2 equal parts on each one. Then come back and just finish drawing a straight line. And what you'll notice is this is not cutting this other side in half. We just cut the angle in half. Now what is the same is on the isosceles triangle over here. Remember last time we said that this was the same on isosceles? The altitude and the median were actually the same line? Well, look here, it's actually the same line as the angle bisector too. So if we're talking about an isosceles triangle, all these are the same. So then the perpendicular bisector, it's a perpendicular segment at the midpoint of a side of the triangle. So I want to draw it in thinking about that I'm going to cut this side in half each time. And then I want to draw a line that's perpendicular. It doesn't go through the vertex, it's just perpendicular to that side right at the middle. Notice that none of them go through the vertex except on the isosceles, because remember, this is actually the same line on all four of these isosceles. All four of these are actually the same line if we're talking about an isosceles triangle. It's not the same on anything else, just on isosceles. Now we're going to do some problems here at the bottom, and we're going to do one problem with each kind and just kind of see what the difference is in these. So the first thing is, when you look at the kind of problem we're talking about, is what does that tell me? If it's an altitude, it tells me that's perpendicular to a side. So I know for an altitude that it's perpendicular, which also means 90 degrees. So this is 90 degrees here. So then this is where we're going to go back and use some of our rules from day 1, where the angles inside a triangle add up to 180. So inside this triangle, I'm going to start with this one. Inside this triangle here, they add up to 180. So 180 minus 32 minus 90 degrees here gives me this angle right here is 58 degrees. Then I can do the same thing with this other angle. If this is 90, this is also 90. And I can do 180 minus 17 minus 90, and I get that this one right here is 73 degrees. And they asked me to find all the missing angles, so I did. On this triangle, now I know it's a bisector, an angle bisector. That tells me it bisects the angle. So that means this one is equal to this one. That also means if this is 37, this one is 37. Well, now I can do the same thing because I know the angles in the triangle add up to 180. So if I look at this triangle here, 180 minus 37 minus 34 gives me this one here is 109. Now I can also say, well, these two make a straight line, so those are supplementary. So 180 minus 109, this angle here is 71. Now I can look at this triangle on this side, And they add up to 180. So 180 minus 37 minus 71, this angle is 72. I found all the angles there. I'm done. The next one is a median. What does that tell us? Well, a median bisects the side. If I don't remember, I can go back and look at my notes from the other day, or I can look at my information on these notes. But it bisects the other side. That means this was equal to this. So if this part is 5, this part here is 5. And it doesn't tell me anything else about the angles. So I've got to go back and work on the interior angles. Well, if I start on this side, let me, before I start there, can I do this angle, this here? I don't know anything about 2 of the angles. I'm missing 2 angles, so I can't start here. But here I'm only missing 1 angle, so I can start on this side. So I know those add up to 180. 180 minus 47 minus 56. This one right here is 77. I can do this, that these two make a straight line. Those are supplementary, so this one and this one add up to 180. So 180 minus 56. I know this one's 124. Now I can do the triangle on the other side because now I'm just missing 1 angle there. So I'm going to do this triangle. 180 minus 124 minus 27, and I get that this one right here is 29. Okay, and our last one, it says that it's a perpendicular bisector, so we know 2 things about perpendicular bisectors. One is that it's perpendicular, that means it's 90 degrees, and we know it's a bisector, it bisects the side. So I know this side is cut in half, so if this is 10, this is also 10. And I know it's perpendicular, so that's a 90 degrees there. So if I start with this triangle right here, those 3 have to add up to 180. So 180 minus 38 minus 90 gives me this one is 52. Now, what else do we know? Well, I also happen to know what kind of triangle is this here. Well, it's telling me this side is equal to this side, so this is an isosceles triangle. And I know from day 1 that the base angles in an isosceles triangle are congruent. So I know this angle here is equal to this one here. So I can do 180 minus 58, and I get 122. But I know these are equal, so I can just take 122 and divide by 2, and I get 61. So this one's 61, and this one's 61. Now I can say, well, this right here is also a 90 degree angle. So if I do 90 minus 61, I get this one right here is 29. I also happen to know, this is kind of like a puzzle you have to work around, these two make a straight angle, so if I do 180 minus 52, I can get this one here. So I'm going to kind of put this information right here. 180 minus 52, I get this one here is 128. And then I can look at this triangle in here, this kind of skinny one, and I know those 3 add up to 180. I have 180 minus 128 minus this one right here is 29, and I get this top angle is 23 degrees. I found all the angles inside there. It's kind of like a puzzle. You have to kind of work around till you find the right angles.